Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Thomas, today we are not doing the Trump decodes because there was a very exciting meeting in Washington yesterday that I'd like you to give commentary on. Okay with you?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so this is James Baker, and he has gone in for a hearing, and Jim Jordan is there, and Kevin McCarthy is there. Of course, we don't know what happened inside the meeting. We're going to have to rely on you and your guesstimates. But what happened after the meeting in the hallway when the reporter asked Jim Jordan what was in the hearing, it was his surprised look on his face that was like, oh my gosh, you can't believe what we found out. I can't tell you. What did he find out?
Jim Jordan was so excited, Betsy, just as you say, he was jumping out of his skin. I have never seen him smile like that. Now, he is a really good guy, and he was standing next to Kevin McCarthy as they came out of the House Joint Committee, which has been looking into all of this corruption. Now, recently, Jim Jordan got to hear, of course, that Devin Nunes and his group in the Intelligence Committee want to release all of the records of the 70 people they interviewed. When that comes out, by simply putting together the pieces, it's very clear that this was a conspiracy and that it was ran out of the CIA, the FBI, and the DOJ, the National Security Division. So,
well, that seems to be a little bit more than just conspiracy. What would be the...
It was driven by the DNC, and this is what James Baker just gave up as his testimony behind closed doors that they will tell us about. But there's much more. And as you say, I'm going to give our guesstimate on what was truly told by James Baker. Now, we have to remember that James Baker has already been called into the grand jury indictment to look into the lack of candor of Andrew McCabe. Now, mind you, the bunk buddies. Andrew McCabe was a bunk buddy. James Baker was a bunk buddy. Lisa Page was a bunk buddy. Peter Strzok. Comey's assistant James Rybicki. But the lead person in all of it, when they rewrote Comey's statement exonerating Hillary from a non-investigation where she was not questioned and was not even a person who was a person of interest in the midterm exam investigation of her server, which you got to take, when you say that, you got to also add that's the DNC server, which means it's the same hack that got the DCCC, the DC leaks, Guccifer 2.0, all of that's one thing. Brian Pagliano, who will not testify before Congress, and they aren't following up on this, is the man who holds the secrets to all of this, right? So what they found out was that the DNC, through another lawyer, Michael Sussman, and we already know that Mark Elias, through Perkins Coie, spent $12 million in oppositional research, paying Fusion GPS to create the dossier through Christopher Steele, a British foreign agent. This is British Spygate. And that he worked with Stephen Halper, a dual citizen who is also a British spy. And we know exactly how much they were paid and when they were paid and everything. And so now what we have is James Baker. We already knew this. Now, James Baker's the lawyer for that group, the bunk buddies.
Were you going to tell us who the key person is? Because you said that earlier. You're getting there.
He is the key person.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure. I hadn't heard you really name him.
There's two people, John Carlin from the Department of Justice, National Security Division, who worked directly in tandem with James Baker through the whole thing. So who wrote the language that changed it from a crime of Hillary Clinton to simply, words that were downgraded? That would be James Baker, because he was the lead counsel for the FBI. He was Comey's lawyer. He was Andrew McCabe's lawyer. He was Peter Strzok and Lisa Page's, the bunk buddy group, which they called the small group, which they called so many names. I've gone into it so many times, I don't even want to go through it. But eventually they called it the insurance package. They called it the group to impeach Trump. They've called it everything. It is truly a CIA counterintelligence black ops a coup d'etat, which is still going on.
And so this is what he heard, the representatives, Jim Jordan, Kevin McCarthy. This is what they heard from James Baker in this hearing?
No. And behind the closed doors, what they heard is the following. They heard James Baker, basically, who now knows that Bruce Ohr was the first one to turn. Remember I said it's going to be the most guilty person or the lawyers that will turn first. And if they already jump ship, they will be the ones who you can bet will turn. And they will turn for immunity.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if James Baker would have received immunity for this.
He didn't ask for immunity on this. He gave them so much information that Jim Jordan, who's probably him and Devin Nunes, the two people closest on the track of this coup d'etat, this color revolution, this George Soros overthrow the election routine that's still going on with Robert Mueller and the same people still going on. And remember, Peter Strzok has not been fired by the CIA. So Peter Strzok was given extraordinary powers to even write national security letters that were signed by Comey under James Baker's approval, which is eventually what will come out, and probably did come out in that meeting, because they said, well, why is it, Mr. Baker, that they would have asked him this behind the closed doors, why is it that you gave your legal approval for an illegal FISA warrant 4 times in a row? And he said, it didn't matter. There was no hearing. Those were applications. We were acting off of national security letters signed by James Comey, and if he told the truth, written by Peter Strzok and engaged by Peter Strzok, and of course approved by James Baker. That's the reason James Baker jumped out of the FBI very quickly. He didn't want to be investigated even by Michael Horowitz, who was doing a very poor, a very mild, a very what you expect Inspector General report to do, which is the Inspector General's office is where truth goes to die, and that's what happened. They're only going after one person, Andrew McCabe, for not having candor. That's not even a crime. You can't even indict someone for that. That grand jury, if that is what they went after him for, which is what they said, that's not a crime. Now, if it would be perjury, which is what it was, and they called it what it was instead of giving it a name like The Matter.
Well, they need to call it what it really is, treason.
Exactly. It was treason, working with foreign and domestic war actors who were attempting to overthrow our election completely and illegally place Hillary Clinton in the White House for the very purposes that we now see as we look back, and the unraveling of the Obama administration shows us the crimes that some of us were aware of when they were happening, that they were about to commit. And we've told you much about that. They've actually written it down in their intelligence community report, The Paradigm of Progress. You can go read it, folks. It's like it's the book that is the playbook of evil for Hillary Clinton when she was about to be elected. But they also threw in there that there could be a wild card who could be a populist nationalist who would go against Islamic fascism. And hello, bingo, Trump won.
So just to remind folks that if you want to see this video and you want to read a little bit about it, go into the link that I have in the description box, and I've got everything packaged up for you very nicely there. But let's go back now to, you've got Jim Jordan coming out with a grin on his face and just lit up like you cannot believe about what he has just heard behind closed doors. What did he hear?
Because what he heard was absolute proof of someone on the inside of the bunk buddies in the FBI, and that inner group working with the CIA, the FBI, and the DOJ, National Security Division. He has someone on the inside who's spilling the beans. Now, he spilled enough beans to cover what he knows Bruce Orr testified on. He gave enough to the committee to cover what he knows Andrew McCabe said in his testimony in his own grand jury indictment that's going on right now. And what he did was, he knows exactly what is in those documents. He created them. So the unredacted documents show him as a source and his methods. So if they get unredacted, he is going to be one of the principal people that was seen as literally the legal counsel that approved these illegal treasonous activities, these seditious activities. So what will happen? This is what I predict. I haven't ran this by the conclave, ran it by a couple of them, and they thought it was okay, so I'm going to say it. I predict, on my own, that there'll be another meeting with James Baker, and that one will be for his immunity. And he will spill the beans on Hillary's emails, which will then lead to Imran Awan if they follow it through. It'll lead to the corruption in the Democratic National Committee. It will lead to the absolute collusion between the DOJ, FBI, CIA, and James Clapper using other intelligence community information, NSA particularly, and the illegal surveillance of the Trump team was much more than that. The wiretap, the reason James Baker is spilling the beans is because he knows what Rod Rosenstein was up to the whole time. And by the way, the Bunk Buddies also includes everyone in the DOJ that was part of this, which is all the top brass.
What about Jeff Sessions? I mean, with this much evidence everywhere, what is he going to do?
Jeff Sessions went to his office
and got on his prayer rug.
Worse. He put wax in his ears. He covered his eyes and he put duct tape over his mouth. Went in the closet and locked it from the inside. And that's the last we've heard of Jeff Sessions. Every once in a while, he lets out a moan, and they take that to be a yes or a no, and they do what they would normally be doing without him. He is nothing except attempting to do nothing, so he won't be considered part of the cover-up, though he knows he's part of the crimes of Uranium One.
Thomas, what you've just described is the plug being pulled out of the swamp. This is amazing. Will this also show the relationship with the British meddling in our elections?
Oh, absolutely. Stephen Halpern, Dearlove, Sir Richard Dearlove, the whole Privy Council group, part of Strategic Communications Laboratories, the whole thing, Cambridge Analytica.
Will it pull the plug on the U.S. Digital Service and Facebook's meddling in the election?
No, that's going forward with full tilt. We could talk about that too. But what we've always said is James Comey is the plug of the swamp, right? So if James Baker turns on James Comey, Comey goes down no matter what immunity deal he has with Robert Mueller, because Robert Mueller is going to be considered part of the conspiracy, and anything that Robert Mueller, it may come down to anything that Robert Mueller did, the government may have to pay back the people that he destroyed.
What do we do with him and his involvement with 9/11?
And put him in jail, because he'll be investigated with a special investigator, which will go back to the other crimes that he's committed in these very high-level, supposedly law enforcement positions where he was, in fact, breaking the law and covering his trails of crime, of evil beyond your imagination. He has been he was 100% complicit with 9/11, folks. How much worse could it possibly be? What could be more awful or evil than that? How about the total overthrow of America, giving it over to what we would call the SES bureaucrats? Sorry, that's a yes?
Because all of these dots are connected and the whole system collapses. It's just a matter of how fast we unroll it, because there's no going back here. This is the trail of truth.
We have always said that, and we've always said that as soon as one person on the inside of one of Comey's bunk buddies turns, it's all over. It looks like he's turning, or he's getting ready to turn. He told Jim Jordan, who knows all of the details, so much that he was excited, which basically means that Jim knows that it's going to go another step, and that he's going to get him on record with immunity, basically spelling out the conspiracy in its toto, because he was there the whole time.
This is one heck of an October surprise.
Oh, yes, and it's going to go very slowly, you see. And Trump is taking it very slowly. That's the reason he's going slow with these. He gave a week to Michael Horowitz, right? Well, Michael Horowitz with a week will turn that into a year and a week. And he won't do anything. He'll just produce a lot of work that means nothing. That's what he does. How many pages? How many millions? And all he got was lack of candor from Andrew McCabe for politicalization between the FBI and the CIA. We now know there was an active conspiracy for a coup. He should be locked up. So, Betsy, it's a slow falling set of dominoes. People need to be calm. They need to sit back and watch the show, have some popcorn, and realize that the dominoes are going to fall because these people are all standing so near to each other with their corruption so that they can put money in one person's pocket while someone's putting money in their pocket. That's how close they have to stand. These are dominoes. This domino effect is widening, and it can all, as we predicted, fall because of one person in Comey's bunk buddies who actually tells the truth. And it looks as if, for one of the first times in modern U.S. history, in Washington, D.C., someone told a bit of truth, and it got our man, who we want to be the Speaker of the House, Jim Jordan, so excited that he was, jumping up and down practically. Now, he didn't get excited like that. So this means it was huge. And Kevin McCarthy, who was a dud, who should not be the Speaker of the House, folks, if there's anything you can do about that, he's a dud, he's a fake, and he was standing there and
Speechless.
saying that was excitement for him.
Yeah.
That's what a dud, that's what an automaton does when they're excited. He was excited. His head was on fire because what he just heard confirmed every bit of what we have been saying. And if you've been listening to what we've been saying, we said it first in many, many cases, and we told you the outline and the plan, and we haven't changed one iota from what we've said.
Nope. Since 2015, we've been laying this out and showing you this corruption, showing you exactly how it would all lay out.
I predicted that it would probably be James Baker. That was my speculation. It was a prediction, but it was speculation, unconfirmed by the conclave or Betsy and her team, that James Baker might be the first to turn. Why? Because he's the ruthless lawyer that was at the heart of all of it. And what's he going to do? He's going to save his own rear. And since he didn't turn on Andrew McCabe and his grand jury indictment, which he could have. Why? He wanted an immunity deal, and he wasn't going to get it there because that's a fake kangaroo court. And everyone was talking about that he had already spilt the beans and told the truth at that grand jury indictment, and we said, no, don't believe that. But I guess he must have told somebody ahead of this he was getting ready to do it because the word was already on the street with the rumors. And so this is more than a rumor now. This is McCarthy and Jim Jordan getting excited about the testimony because it basically confirming everything they've been saying. And if you want the best version of the inside truth of this conspiracy, it would be Jim Jordan and Devin Nunes because they have been leading this. They are the spearhead. And, of course, others, Grassley and Goodlayton, Meadows and all these other people doing a good job. But those two are leading it, and we need to support them any way that we can.